Good evening. The Finance Committee meeting for the Gary Common Council is now called to order. On this evening's agenda, March 13th, there are two ordinances and one resolution. The ordinances are CPO 2019-11, which is an ordinance amending the salary and operating budgets for the Commission for Women Fund 261-520, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson and Angie Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-12, an ordinance appropriating 2019 budgets for the operating expenses of grants and special revenue funds for solid waste recycling of the City of Gary for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2019 and ending December 31, 2019, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, and Angie Hayes, City Controller. And finally, the resolution CPR 2019-01, a resolution of the Gary Common Council granting T&B Company an assessed valuation deduction tax abatement for depreciable personal property pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-12.1, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Department of Commerce, Gary Economic Development Corporation. Present this evening is Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell from the 5th District, Councilwoman Loretta Sparks Wade from the 6th District, Councilwoman Rebecca Wyatt from the 1st District, Councilman at Large Herb Smith, Council Attorney, our Council Legal Advisor, Brenda Williams, and our Council Financial Advisor, Mr. Virgil Moore. So, the gang's all here, and we are ready to begin. And we will start with CPO 2019-11, which is an ordinance amending the salary and operating budgets for the Commission for Women. And our controller, Angie Hayes, is here. Hi, Angie.
Good evening. I want to present this evening CPO 2019-11. This is amending the salary and operating budgets for the Commission for Women for Fund 261. I have Ms. George here who will be able to explain more of the detail of the change, but we are looking to make an adjustment to eliminate one position, creating another. The salary amounts will be the same, and the budget line itself will not change. But I would like to sort of explain the reasoning behind the change.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. The salary budget you see before you originally had $12,110 for a position that was a part-time position for a custodian or a maintenance position. We have not filled that position, and we had another need that we needed to urgently fill. One of our grant funding we did not get renewed for the new year. So we are taking that $12,110 to help supplement, or not supplement, but to help absorb some of the costs from the shelter director for the shelter.
So this is for the Rainbow Shelter?
Yes, ma'am.
And is the Rainbow Shelter the domestic violence shelter?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but did the people from the Rainbow Shelter move into the
Yes.
other shelter? What's the name of the other
The
one?
Rainbow Arc is down there.
The Ark.
Yes.
It's the Rainbow Ark?
Yes.
So are we, is that in violation of any grants that you have for domestic violence victims?
No, that change happened almost 2 years ago, so no, we haven't had it about as far as, you mean as far as the staff being in the same building?
Yeah,
No,
that happened 2 years ago?
almost, that was in August of 2017 that occurred. that
Okay,
change
so we
occurred.
no longer have just a domestic violence
We
shelter.
have domestic violence / homeless shelter, yes.
So then how do we protect the victims of, on the domestic violence side, when the regulations are not the same for the homeless side?
It's always been that way. It's always been a domestic violence / homeless shelter.
Rainbow Shelter has been?
Yes. Yes. The ARC shelter was a transitional shelter. The
Okay.
Rainbow Shelter has always been a homeless domestic violence shelter.
Okay, so how is that, I have concerns. I have concerns. Because the protections that would go with the domestic violence, how do you keep them protected if you have both of those programs going on at the same
So
time?
the same regulations that we have for domestic violence clients applies across the board. When we take the crisis calls and we do the screening mechanism, we only take homeless individuals from the city of Gary. They are not coming from other states or other counties. All of the security rules apply to the homeless clients as well, and it's been working that way.
Okay, so nobody's given the phone number or the
This is
address,
a protected
or
situation, protected address.
cameras.
We have cameras, we just got our new security system back in September, 21 new cameras, doors that, if you open any door, chimes out and let us know what doors are open, we can see every entrance, every hallway, all of that, so yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
okay, since we're taking the money from the custodian maintenance, how do you propose to do that now?
Well, we never had a custodian or a maintenance person. Currently, our caseworker advocates do that job. We're trying to find a workaround for that because it does get kind of busy with the normal day-to-day operations that does occur. It was difficult trying to get someone. Nobody wanted to work a part-time job. We've been trying to fill that position for 5 or 6 months.
Wow.
And then when we would interview people, they felt the pay was too low. And then, of course, part-time. They didn't want to work a part-time job. So we're still working out how we're going to, in the long term, take some of the pressure off our staff members.
So in summary, basically, the caseworkers are sharing into the custodial and maintenance of the building?
Yes.
Okay.
And with that being said, with security, that's also an
Okay.
issue as well. In the past, I think they didn't have, custodian or because you just don't want anybody running the building. So,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
And one more question. What grant funding was not renewed?
It was a Victims of Crime Act.
Okay. And how long have we had that grant?
I'm not sure, but that was a 2-year grant. We have 2 of them. We have 2 Victims of Crime Act grants. So one of them we're still operating from, and the other one was not.
Okay.
But I also wanted to mention this position also, we're writing 3 grants right now that we're anticipating this position, the rest of her salary to be picked up in domestic violence and prevention and treatment grant.
So this is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
You go ahead.
This is the shelter director position.
Yes.
And we've not had a shelter director position there before?
Yes, we have.
Okay. But it wasn't,
It's just new under this particular funding.
okay.
Madam Chair, one more question.
Okay, well, I just want to interrupt for a moment to say that we've been joined by our council president, Mr. Ron Brewer. I just want to let you know that he has joined us. Okay, proceed. Go ahead.
I just have a general question. Okay, so most of the people who are there for domestic violence reasons probably have some type of protective order?
I won't say that all of them have a protective order, and they don't all generally come in with a protective order, but if they need a protective order, if they don't have one, when they enter the shelter, we have someone that assists them with getting that.
Are you leaving as soon as you're done? I like to speak.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I remain concerned about the maintenance position because one of our problems with the facilities is we let the maintenance go, then it ends up costing us more money in the long run to replace something. So when was the last time that you had a maintenance and custodial person?
In years. I'm not sure.
Who does the maintenance? Well, does General Service do it for like furnaces and stuff like that?
We have been calling out vendors in the past for furnaces,
Okay.
heating and cooling, things like that.
Okay.
And some of our grant funding has, covered a lot of those things.
And so the things that the caseworkers handle are just the general cleaning?
Cleaning, yes.
Okay. And so we would just get a contractor if you need painting or any kind of repair? or anything?
Actually, we just received some funding from our ESG grant that will cover painting, flooring, things like that, patching,
Mhm.
And then in the interim, yes, then we will have a contractor who will do any upkeep, things like that.
Major things.
Yeah,
Major, yes.
okay, thank you.
So I would think the answer to that question, as far as manager, I would say part of the building department is overseeing the building per se, to make
They're
sure
working
things
with
are
us right
general
now.
plan.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want that to be clarified there. Okay.
Any more questions or comments? Anybody from the general public have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Have any of the proceeds that you're anticipating being approved been expended already?
For which.
Salaries or in any line item, have any of these been already
Yes, for
expended?
the caseworker advocates, yes.
Then whenever that occurs, we need to make sure we do a motion to approve and ratify.
Well, the budget was previously approved. We're just making a change to the previously approved budget.
So I'm saying that the changes
No.
that you're requesting, have any of those dollars been
No,
expended?
no.
No, they have
Then
not.
there's no need, okay, then it's just approved. All right.
we okay?
We are.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. CPO 2019-12, the operating expenses, grants, and special revenue funds for solid waste recycling. We are ready.
Thank you. Yes. This is for the budget year for 2019, and this will need to be approved and ratified because we have been expending salary expenses from here. I have with me Mrs. Gerald, who is our Director of Recycling, to be able to answer any of the budget questions that you have. But on page 3 starts the actual budget. Page 4 I'll have the salary lines. There are no changes to the budget as if it was approved for 2018 as we submitted for 2019.
There are no changes, is that what you said?
There are no changes,
From 2018 to 2019, no.
so why are we here?
Because we did not submit her 2019 budget.
Oh,
That's what we're asking for approval now is her 2019 budget.
Oh, okay. I would like for you to give out the number for folks who want to get recycling bins, and especially the big ones, and if you have any of those big ones, because people have been asking.
Good evening, council. I'm Nancy Fitzgerald Williams, and the number to request recycling bins is 882-8445, extension 3. You can also request recycling bins by our City of Gary 311 system. And you also can visit our website at www.garygreenteam.org and request a recycling bin. Once our budget is approved, then we will be able to purchase more recycling bins. And late spring is when we should have those available for the citizens. However, we do have the red recycling bins that you can make those requests via phone 311 or by our website.
Thank you.
So currently you don't have any of the big green ones, is that what you're saying?
No, we don't have any green ones available at this time. We were waiting on the budget to be approved to purchase.
Are you all on your regular schedule of pickup?
Yes. The recycling department is closed when the City of Gary is closed, so we're on the same calendar. And once we're closed on a Monday, we just pick up on Tuesday and complete the routes by ending on that Saturday.
And why wasn't the budget approved last year?
I have no idea.
It was with all the budgets that we were going through, this one, for some reason, my grant administrator was placed to, or was submitted.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So this is, the source of the revenue here is grant funds?
Yes. And it's from the Lake County Solid Waste District.
Right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So this budget here includes all your grants here, is included inside this budget here?
Yes, sir, this would be operational as well as salary.
Okay. And just for the general public, when do you plan on starting the pickup of leaf bags, grass, that nature?
We're picking them up as of today.
Okay.
If you have bags, brown bags in front of your home, then we are picking those up.
So are you running on the calendar schedule, or are you just picking them up as you see them?
No, we pick them up on the west side of Gary, the first and the third week of the month, and the east side of Gary, the second and fourth week of every month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, when your budget is approved, when do you, how soon do you expect to have the budget presented?
That would be late spring.
Late spring,
Yes,
okay.
because then I can place the order and then give them time.
We would like to have one. I'll come visit you. Thank you.
I have one.
So, yeah.
I mean, really, you do more recycling
Yeah,
than
garbage.
Yeah.
Just garbage, yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Right,
little
you've done a
ones
great
just
job.
don't do it, yeah.
So I end up putting it in the garbage.
But, you know,
Get one
Okay.
temporarily.
they do, at least as far as I'm concerned, the guys from recycling do a good job in terms of picking up the, I mean, they do an excellent job in
Well,
terms
I
of
looked
picking
at mine today and mine was still sitting there. That's why I asked about the schedule and I didn't know.
I don't know.
I couldn't imagine why
I
it
don't
was
know why
still
yours was
full.
there, but I know that I get, in our neighborhood, we get picked
Give
up.
us a call or place your complaint at 311 and we'll make sure we take care of it.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments, concerns? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, finally on the agenda, CPR 2019-01, which is a resolution granting T&B2 Company an assessed valuation deduction tax abatement for depreciable personal property. So we are ready. Are you? Oh, you are, okay.
To Madam Chair, this honorable body, it's a pleasure to meet you all members before. Brian Watkins, and I'm representing the Area Development Commission. I do want to say one thing before we get started. With the scheduling change of this meeting, the applicant tonight, Mr. Jack Jones, who is the CEO, due to a scheduling error, was not able to be here tonight, and I do understand he apologizes profusely for that shift in his schedule. So if it be the pleasure of this body, we can do this a couple of different ways. I can go through the information tonight and give all the details, and we can bring this back to another committee meeting, or I can give all the information, and Mr. Jones has promised that he would be at the council meeting that would happen after this. And I want to defer to Madam Chair and the rest of the council as to how you would like to proceed.
I'm fine.
I think you should go ahead.
I'm fine if he's going to be at the council meeting.
Right.
I'm fine.
Right.
Yes.
Indeed, I'll let Mr. Jones know. So thank you so very much. TMB 2 it specializes in manufacturing cut-to-length steel tube for a variety of applications, including point-of-purchase displays, outdoor products, and the like. The applicant proposes to invest $5.2 million in new equipment to increase its capacity within its current operations. It's located at 4007th Street in Gary, Indiana, and currently they have 85 employees and will be adding 11 additional employees for this expansion. An analysis was conducted to determine the best option to provide a competitive offer to the applicant with no adverse impact to the city. That should be contained in the memo that we submitted to this body. And per that analysis, it appears that to the city's benefit, this particular abatement would net the city somewhere in the neighborhood of $14,000 to $15,000. And what that means is, by doing this abatement and the additional employment, the city has no adverse effects. They do not lose in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, this is not a 100% abatement at all. We have significantly scaled back the level of abatement so as not to over-incentivize this particular project. and to put the city in the best position as relates to both the employment and the expansion for TMB2. And if you have any questions, I'm here to take them.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Currently, you have how many employees do they have?
So currently, the level of employment is 85 employees, and they'll be adding 11 based upon the $5.2 million expansion.
Thank you.
So could you explain, I see the abatement schedule on Exhibit B. Could you explain to the public exactly what the abatement schedule is going to look like?
Sure, I can do that. And any gaps that I have with the city's other resident expert, Dan Bowditch, is here to back me up. So if you look at Exhibit 1, in a traditional 100% abatement, you would see in that far column 100, 100, 100, 100, meaning they would be getting all of those taxes abated in Exhibit 1. But what we've done in order to not over-incentivize this particular expansion, we've reduced that every year. So the second year, yes,
Hold
ma'am.
on, Exhibit 1, I see Exhibit A,
It's B.
I see Exhibit B.
It's B.
Okay.
Okay.
Exhibit B.
My apologies. I think it's level 1
Okay.
in my notes.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy. So again, in a traditional abatement, you would see 100 in all of those categories for each year of this abatement. But in order to not over-incentivize this and not to give a complete 100% abatement, that is graduated and reduced every year. So the first year 100, the second year 90, all the way down to 10%. So they're only getting 10% of that full abatement at the end of this. And given the level of employment that they've represented, the 11 additional jobs, we found that this particular level suits well for the abatement that, for the investment, the $5.2 million investment that they're recommending.
So on the, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So on the employees, are they saying these gonna be guaranteed Gary workers? These slots are slotted for just Gary workers? Is that what we're saying here?
So through the chair to Mr. Chair, what we've done is within the framework of this abatement, there is a strengthened agreement as it relates to these jobs, and I'd like for Ms. Tammy
Davis.
Ms. Tammy Davis from GSD, who's been working with us on the employment side to talk about the things that will be happening going forward that will strengthen our ability to be able to acquire Gary residents for these jobs. So if you
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Happy to be before you once again. When it comes to TMB tubing, in terms of strengthening their representation of utilization, one of the things that we will be looking at is kind of auditing where the current 85 positions are to see how many Gary residents they currently have. And for the 11 positions, working directly with Ms. Gina Lowe. She recently was brought on by TMB Tubing. We had an opportunity to sit down with her at the employer roundtable that took place at our house on February the 27th. And so at that point in time, she did mention that they are looking to hire, and we will be partnering with them to make sure that the outreach and that the applications include Gary residents. Of course, we always want to make sure that there are specific slots allocated to Gary residents. So we're working with Working One. Of course, we always reach out to our workforce development consultant, Diane Sandlin, to ensure that we're doing our due diligence in reaching out to Gary residents who participate in those particular positions, which also means getting copies of the job descriptions, making sure that they get out into the community, and helping them even with identifying recruiting applicants. So as we move forward, and what Mr. Watkins was mentioning in terms of strengthening, we want to make sure that there's at least some type of reporting on a consistent basis, so that we have that type of accountability and that we're up to date with where a lot of these companies are with hiring Gary residents.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So one other question, so how soon would they be looking to hire? And if it's possible, I don't know if you all know tonight, but probably by the next council meeting, can you all give us an overview of what the job description of those jobs would look like? Yes.
I think we can definitely reach out to Ms. Lowe as early as tomorrow to see what their time schedule is, and definitely have a one-on-one And at the employer roundtable, we had mentioned getting a copy of the job description. So she's already made aware of that, of what the expectations are. So there should be no surprise that when we meet with her, that she'll have some of that information available.
Thank you.
And that, of course, would include education requirements, skill sets, what training would be needed, and who our potential partners would be to help facilitate the training for the jobs that are needed for those positions.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, my question is, since, if I'm hearing you correctly, there's no guarantee of Gary people having these jobs, but you're gonna reach out, do outreach to get as many as you can. One, I'm not a real proponent of abatements unless there's some kind of equitable trade-off. So my question is, can you or someone provide us, the council, once the hiring starts, some type of record, or come back and let us know? So we need to see an equitable trade-off here if we're gonna give out abatement.
Right, and that's
In this
kind of
time.
the reporting that I was mentioning in terms of moving forward and how we strengthen these projects so that there is continuous oversight and also involvement and engagement with these companies. So that is not once a year or every 5 years, but that there is continuous communication in the partnership between the corporations and the city. And of course, we can't guarantee anything. We can only do what we can. And what we can do is work with the companies to get a copy of the job description, make sure that it gets out to the community, do our recruitment, identification, and assist them in making sure that those jobs are accessed by Gary residents.
So at
And
least-
support them to the degree that we can.
So at least once a year for the next 10 years, we'll get some kind of report as the number of Gary employees there, so that we can see that there was some equity here.
Right, I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, but I think that in previous discussions, when we talked about abatements and incentives for other projects, we mentioned the idea of reporting, and some of that reporting would include how many actual apply for the position. Of those that applied, how many were Gary residents? Of those that applied, how many were interviewed? Of those that were interviewed, who was hired? How many of the Gary residents were hired? And then checking back within like 30 or 60 days to see what the retention rate is for those Gary residents. So to the degree that there are some deficiencies or gaps, we have identified a number of partners, particularly through the Employers Roundtable that was held last month. For example, if there are some challenges with employees, like with childcare, there's ELCA, who provides assistance with daycare assistance for employees. So I think we're employed and we are poised to identify resources to assist Gary residents with being successful, but of course we can't guarantee. But we can definitely make sure that the Gary community is made aware of those job descriptions and to make sure that we're partnering with them to be successful.
And that there's continuous outreach in the community, right?
Surely.
I think that, I'm sure that we know as a council that it is our obligation to make sure that those things happen. And in the past, in the past, we've had companies who have been granted tax abatement and were supposed to do some certain things in terms of hiring Gary residents, and it didn't happen.
Right.
And so we have the ability to take back, so to speak, that abatement. So, there's certainly some of the onus is on us to make sure that it's happening.
But we
So-
need the numbers.
This is what I'm saying, so we need to make sure that we get them,
Okay.
because we are supposed to make sure that it's happening.
Madam
So,
Chair?
yes.
And to be clear, this is an existing business that is requesting an abatement on the investment that they're making to that existing facility, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Through the chair.
all right.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The TMB2 has really enhanced that area. They've cleaned up that corner where you go around, and I've been on the plant. It's very nice, and it's a good addition to the first district, and I appreciate that, and I would vote to approve the abatement. However, I just noticed on the, it looks like on the back side of Exhibit A, it just says 10 for the project number instead of 11, so I just want to make sure. It says 85 employees currently, and then 10 for the project proposed.
Through the chair and Madam Council Member, it should be 85 plus 11.
Yeah, okay.
So you gonna move to have this amended?
Sorry.
So you will move to have this amended to 11, then?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right. Is it, okay. Okay.
We're gonna have to work together.
I haven't seen
Okay.
this before.
Pardon?
I haven't seen this location. I gotta go look at it.
So just for the record, Madam Chair, this is an existing business that came here a couple of years ago, and they're coming back to make expansion to their facility, and they're asking for an abatement on the expansion. Okay. Yeah, they have been very good up front with us on their project. I don't see any objections to it. Yes. Just for the things that I requested at the next meeting, that's all.
But I think this is the the way that we can work with new investors in our city to let them know that we appreciate their investment, we appreciate that they chose Gary, and we're willing to work with them so that they can grow and we can grow.
Well, I would just add that some of the previous companies that we have had, and I hate to call out other companies, but I'll do it very quickly. Superior Trust, they had an issue that they was having with hiring, and they knew they had got the abatement, but they brought that to our attention, and we started working to correct that problem. So I can appreciate, different ones that have got the abatement, seen a problem that was inside the hiring process, and brought it to our attention where we can address it. So I would just, hopefully if that problem should exist with TMB2, they will bring it to our attention also. But Ms. Davis is on the case now. She wasn't there when they came on, but you've been doing a great job.
Madam Chair.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
And I'm in agreement with Mr. President over there, but I believe in trust but verify. So I would like to see some type of, yearly report on the number of Gary residents there, because when we got the information sitting in front of us and not depending on someone else to provide it to us, like the company,
Makes sense.
it just makes sense. Thank you.
And I can tell you, I can make sure that happens too, because each of these things have to come before the president and get signed off on, so I can make sure that the council, as long as I'm in this tenure, that gets taken care of.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay.
We want all the city, all the business to come to Gary, come. Welcome.
Madam Chair.
I think he has a question.
Yes.
If I
Sure.
may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Dan Bowditch, I've been working with the city and the redevelopment commission as the economic development advisor. And not to be leaguer the cause, because I can see that you supported of the company. But this is a copy of the reporting that's required for the city, and it includes a breakdown of the residents, where they're from, which state, are they minority, male, female, which residents are Gary residents. And then on the back, they've already filled out for the prior years their hiring practices to date, and have submitted that to the city. I don't have it with me this evening, but I can make sure that Mr. Jones has that for the next meeting. But it is an existing company. They have been active in the community. They've already invested in their relocation from Illinois, approximately $13 million in the facility that was previously vacant. And now this is an opportunity whereby they've had a potential and a prospect come to them to purchase several production lines to make tubing for recreational vehicles in Elkhart. So through a partnership with a steel industry not located here but in South Bend, they would provide the steel and then they would tube it and send it back for recreational vehicles. And TMB Tube, for all intents and purposes, what they do is they make the tubing for any product, such as a lawnmower or the chairs that are here this evening. Anything that has a tube involved, they make that per spec. And those are sent out throughout the world. And when I was there, I had a tour. Mr. Jones took me through, and they were making preparing and putting an order together to go out to make chairs for Las Vegas, 1 million chairs. So if anybody goes to Vegas, you're probably sitting on a chair that has been produced with the tubes in Gary, Indiana. So it is a valid, and they've been a good, from my perspective, and I believe from the councilman from the first district would know, they've been a good community citizen. They, with the previous abatement, it must be noted that there was an imposed fee of 15% on their tax savings. And over the past 2 years, they have paid, according to the auditor, their imposed fee totaling $30,000, which was then transferred and disseminated back to the Gary Economic Development Corporation for additional economic development services throughout the city. So they have done what they've asked you to do. And as Brian had mentioned, the first abatement was 100% for 10 years. And that was to offset some of their relocation costs. And now it's a function of they're asking for assistance without the full 10-year 100%, but a 10-year graduated. Because as Jack said, I don't need to be greedy. I just need to make sure that I can provide jobs and have a profitable company in the city of Gary where I want to be. And I believe he lives in Gary also. I believe Jack lives in Gary.
Thank you, Jack.
So thank you.
I need you to do that same spiel at the council meeting too. Thank you. All right.
Through the chair, one last thing.
Yes.
And to the committee, borrow from Mr. Councilmember, I want to trust and verify. I'd like to verify the one additional job that we added. So I'll do that, and I'll make sure that all the resolutions reflect that, whether it's 10 or 11, I want to check that first. All right.
Let me add, in terms of trust and verify, we'll have an official report from the compliance department that verifies the breakdown of their employment. So that will accompany the report that Dan has presented.
And the reason I say I trust and verify, I used to work for OFCCP, Office of Federal Contracts and Compliance in Chicago, as a federal compliance officer. So I'm gonna look to you to give me the proper papers.
I'm very familiar with
Okay.
OFCCP, and there are 16 affirmative action
Yeah.
steps, so I got it.
All right, I'm gonna be looking for it. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? I thank you guys very much. Thank you. Okay, so if there are no further questions or comments, that was the last item on the agenda. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.